Hey guys, it's Thorn. Yeah, it's been a trying several weeks. I've been most active on Twitter in the last couple of weeks just because I feel like Twitter is a lot better at sharing resources and engaging in conversation. YouTube, honestly, with my computers kind of shitting the bed, YouTube has been a little bit difficult lately just because I have to do things from my phone, and my phone can only upload things of a certain length and a certain quality, etc. But I did want to say hi, and I guess talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening. I've mostly tried to keep my mouth shut just because I think for most white people, the biggest thing right now is creating space for Black voices and creating space for Black people in our communities. Aside from reading literature and fixing our feeds, that sort of thing that should be really obvious, okay, but just isn't, I think, to white people. I think we have the privilege of not noticing. Going through and kind of fixing those things for myself. Most of my energy has been focused in very practical ways in my workplace. I work in publishing, so I have my employer and then also my own publisher, Llewellyn, being putting myself in direct conversation with the folks who can actually make changes in those fields, just because realistically there's so much that individual authors can do. Like there's only so much. A lot of the changes that need to take place are systemic, and many of those things are in the power of other people, right, with more power. So my own employer is, it's a white workspace, and our authors are white, and our managers are white, and a lot of what I've been trying to do is just engage people in those conversations in professional settings. So like bringing it up in meetings and, hey, why haven't we made public statements, or why haven't we created a hub for the Black authors that we have, or the writers who are focusing on issues surrounding police brutality, but also like the school to prison pipeline or some of these other issues that affect Black communities disproportionately. Look at all of these other publishers, and these are the actions that they're taking. Why can't we do these things? And just sort of trying to get up in my managers' faces and frankly just make them uncomfortable. Sometimes the simplest and most effective thing to do in those environments is send the uncomfortable email. One thing that I've seen at work is I'm a vocal person, and I'm happy to say the uncomfortable thing. But what I find is that when I do this in meetings, my coworkers are completely silent, but I will get private messages later that say things like, "Oh, thanks for speaking up," or "Yes, me too." And that gets really frustrating because the correct response there is to vocalize those concerns, back me up in the meeting. And then, obviously, like, there's that situation that occupies time. And these are things that we should have been doing earlier. I think that's the most uncomfortable thing for white people, is just realizing that these are things that should have happened all along, and these are conversations that should be ongoing, and we should already be trying to make space. So I think it's been sobering to look at our complicity in those situations and go back now to correct it, like better late than never, I guess. And then reaching out to Llewellyn directly and having conversation with them about first the lack of a statement, and then the quality of the statement, etc. And then beyond just making a statement, because like statements only go so far, right? Like it's all well and good to, this is what people mean by virtue signaling, right? Like it's all well and good to make a statement of solidarity, but that doesn't necessarily do a lot of good if you're not making changes in your internal policies and practices that actually foster racism. So in the case of a publisher, like it's one thing to say, "Oh yes, we support Black Lives Matter," But if you're not forwarding the careers of Black authors, then what are you doing, right? So again, like I work in publishing, so I'm speaking really broadly here. So just putting myself in a place where I can have those uncomfortable conversations and trying to encourage other privileged authors, other white authors to do the same. So there's that. I think too, like for me, some of the most important work that I think people can do, white people can do, is have conversations within our families and communities. One of the reasons why I have sort of historically been opposed to cancel culture, right? And what that means kind of changes from year to year. But one of the reasons why I balk at the insistence that we should just stop talking to people who are racist or homophobic or transphobic, etc., stop engaging with them at all, functionally pretend that they don't exist. One of the problems with that is that even if we don't engage with those people, and obviously like there are ways to engage with them. I'm not saying that we still buy their work and support them and tell them that things are okay, but when we stop engaging with those people are still turning out to voting polls, and those people are still taking action in their own communities to carry their agendas forward. And sometimes the people who are the most qualified to change those people's perspectives are the ones who are closest to them. So here in the South, for example, the reality of the situation is that no matter how liberal we might be individually, most of our parents are not. Our parents are racist. Our parents are, they're homophobes, they're Trump supporters, they're whatever awful thing, okay? But if we collectively pretend that our parents don't exist, like our parents are still going to go out and vote. And our parents aren't going to listen to Black voices. They're not listening to, they're not listening to liberal politicians on media who they're suspicious of. The only people who they might listen to is their children. So to me, it feels like my personal responsibility to be the liberal in my family, and have those uncomfortable conversations about race, because like Black people can't do that for us, and they shouldn't have to do that for us. Like we have to reach into our own communities and disrupt them and have those big fights with our parents and make them look at it, whatever it is. So that's what my weeks have looked like recently. And then of course, like doing a lot of reading, trying to use whatever platform I have to create space for other voices. Now doesn't seem like the right time to be making videos about, like how to do whatever in witchcraft. Unless it's how to be anti-racist. And honestly, like I don't have great answers for that right now. Like this is a space where I'm educating myself. But anyway, I hope everybody is well. It's been, I think, kind of the most surreal experience about the last month has been the backdrop of the pandemic, because I don't think the pandemic is at the fore of conversation anymore. And it's starting to feel a little bit like I just hallucinated the last couple of months, because things are open, like people are going to restaurants here in North Carolina. Like I walk downtown or I take my car somewhere and it's like nothing is different. People aren't wearing masks. They aren't social distancing. Our community pool opened up on Memorial Day like it was nothing, tra-la-la. And like, I don't know what to do with that. I'm currently trying to fend off pressure from my employer to go back to the office. And I don't know how long I'm going to be able to hold on, like, honestly. So it's all very surreal. But we are still in the midst of a pandemic, so things to keep in mind. But I hope all of you are well. Yeah, I hope you're all hanging in there and protecting yourselves and taking care of each other. I don't know when we'll get back to regular content. I don't know that there is a getting back to regular content over, like, after a period like this. We're living in the midst of something, and I really hope to see it have impact on our communities as a whole. I know for my part, one of the things that I'm going to start doing as a pagan presenter is I'm going to ask that organizers, I'm gonna ask them how many Black presenters they have, how many people of color they have teaching, etc. Just because I find, pagan events are overwhelmingly white, and if there are Black presenters or other people of color, often they're relegated to particular communities and they don't have the space or the opportunity to interact with like publishing representatives or very large community leaders, etc. Like, you can walk around festivals and you can see the segregation at work, and it's unintentional, but it's built into how the thing is structured. So that's the result. I also see racism in my own tradition and in my own communities. So I think these are all conversations that are ongoing, and I don't know how we get back to just like making a book video, But I wanted to check in and say hi. So I'm gonna go for real now because work ticks on. But take care of yourselves, and Black Lives Matter.